button.
And we should be live. Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Sorry for that delay. My computer died. It ran out of energy, so we had to restart everything. So sorry about that. Welcome to a branch of Laurels. My name is Ashaxi, and tonight my guest is Mistress Briatis DeAndrade. And I didn't do the accent I wanted to on that, but that's okay. Order of the Laurel, Order of the Pelican, and Walker of the Way from Outlands. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is going to be great.
Yeah, this has been, you have been waiting to come on for quite a while.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
So why don't you start us off with your SCA origin story?
Well, let's see. Okay, so we could start with the, no, there I was. But that's not really exactly how that happened. So let's see. It was the late summer, early fall of 1984. In Fort Collins, Colorado, and I was biking through Fort Collins and saw these guys in the park. And so, yeah, just like pretty much, everybody in Berkeley, hey, those people in the park. And I watched them for a few weeks and thought, wow, that's really cool. I grew up in not only doing dance costumes, but also just my mom kept saying, if you want it, you make it. And I said, all right. So I taught myself to sew. And so I was making costumes out of crepe paper because we didn't have any extra fabric right at that time. But, so it was, I was already kind of primed for this. And then in mid-October 1984, the guy that I was dating, okay, so there was this guy, he comes over to the house and he says, put on a long skirt. And then he looks at my mother and says, Mary, I'll have her home by 2. And mom says, you'll have her home by midnight. And he says, Mary, I'll have her home by 2. And he took me to a newcomer's revel and I never left. I was 15. So it was awesome. I had just quit dancing. I had, life was really rough right at that point. My parents had just split up and so things were really bad. And I found the SCA and it was amazing. It was just amazing.
And did you grow up in Fort Collins?
Not entirely. I'm originally from Southern California. Sir Connell, Her Majesty Nerissa, and I were all born within probably 15 miles of each other, which is kind of funny because we didn't know until later. It's pretty funny. But no, I'm originally from Riverside, California. My dad was a professor at the university. We moved to Fort Collins when he decided to work for the Forest Service. So he's a tree guy. And I graduated from high school there. And I've been living in the Front Range of Colorado off and on since 1977.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I was born in Fort Collins, but moved when I was like a year old and
oh my God.
have not really ever been back. So
that's crazy. It is so huge. It's like 125,000 now.
Wow.
125,000 people. It's crazy.
Wow. Super cool.
Yeah.
So you found the SCA so young. 15 is like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It was amazing. It was just like being on stage with the dance company, only it was cooler. It was a whole lot cooler. I got to wear better clothes. I didn't have to put on point shoes. I got to talk to really interesting people. It was fascinating. I went to my first high court event in January of '85. Um, I made the ugliest dress possible. Oh my God. I dismantled 2 ballet costumes, bought 3 yards of the worst, nastiest acetate polyester satin in a light blue color, attached all this silver lace to it and called it a 15th century houppelande. I had no idea what I was doing, and showed up at the event. Um, and wow, it was amazing. 300 people in the hall. Carriton 12th night. They had it in one of these, which is Denver. My parents let me go to Denver with a bunch of friends. There were 5 or 6 of us that were all in high school, in that 15 to 16 range. And so we carpooled down, which was awesome. And we ate off-board feast and we danced, and there was greenery in the hall, and this gentleman walks over to me and he's amazingly pretty. And he hands me a cloven orange and he kisses me on the cheek, and he's just lovely and wonderful. And I'm going, who's that guy? And then he walks back up to the front of court, puts on the crown of Atenvelt, and starts court. And hey, so I just met the king. And I was like, okay.
Who was that?
Micah Longbow. Micah Longbow was king of Atenvelt, with Countess Tamsin. Micah was in Atenvelt and then left to go to the east and Atlantia, and then came back here, and now he's back here in the Outlands. Countess Tamsin, I believe, is up in Montana. I don't know. They're both awesome. I spent part of that reign, when they would come north to Fort Collins or to Greeley or to Cheyenne or anything like that. I watched their kids. So there was a lot of Joey get down from there. And Joey get down from there, that was his name, is now Sir Audie.
Awesome.
He's great. But yeah, I've really enjoyed seeing them grow up. I spent a lot of time early on babysitting some of the kids so that their parents, who were either on baronial or kingdom seats, being able to have court without having to juggle
Right.
a toddler.
So your service started early as well as your arts?
Very early, very early. The first time I actually worked for I won't say it was formally for a reign, but I did Queen of Atenvelt, Adriana Holloway. She was Brian Tarragon's first queen. And we were at this event in Grand Junction, and she comes busting out of her tent going, I need somebody who can French braid hair. Well, I've spent most of my life in a dance studio. I can do this. And so I braided her hair. And then she said, will you stand with me during court? And I said, oh, I'm 16 years old. I'm dumb as dirt. I don't know what's going on, but okay. So, it's like, okay. So, I started with that. I started sewing stuff as soon as I could find something that was not polyester. God, I did ceremonially melt that first dress, though.
Good move. I still have parts of my first costume, but it was a wool tablecloth and a silk pirate shirt. So
that's awesome. No. That is awesome.
Tablecloth had a bungee cord holding it on me.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I love it.
So you were just a kid. Did you kind of form an attachment with an adult that became your mentor at that time?
There were a couple. Very early on. Let's see. The first one would have been Master Odander Hologaland, who Master Odan was Master at Arms, and he did his best to keep me out of trouble. I'll just say it that way. The other group of folks that did really well with that and kind of kicked me in the behind to get more into the arts was the Abbey of St. Mary's Abbey of Wayward Soldiers and Seamstresses, headed up by Baroness Kate Holford, who, God rest her soul, she's passed away in the last year or so. Kate was she was the first Laurel I ever met. She was this tiny, tiny, tiny little woman, tiny. And she was always soft-spoken. She never said a bad thing about anybody. She was always elegant, always graceful, and she could tell you to go to hell, and you would thank her for the trip and then ask her for tickets to do it again. She's amazing. Yeah, she's just amazing. And she was Baroness of Certa when I started. And so she's just tiny, dark-haired, beautiful woman sitting so regally, and her husband, Nicholas de Cane, just this large bear of a man. And so you're just like, wow, look at all of this regal stuff. And you're just like, wow, I'm hooked. So there were those folks early on. Countess Kymber the Darkwater was also in my local group for a while, and then she moved down to Certa. She was the one person who was fighting, and when I first got in, I wanted to fight, and they said, "Girls don't fight." And I said, "What?" And so I kind of sat there and hemmed and hawed about it for a while, and then I saw Kymber fighting, and they said, "Well, oh, that's Kymber." And I went, "And?" She's a girl.
That's you.
Yeah, it's like, I'm a girl, she's a girl. And I didn't really think too much of it until I saw, because we were still all part of Atenvelt at the time. We had Viscountess Leah Despenser, Sir Leah, who came over with her family. Leah and Robert came over with their daughters, and one of their daughters, Amanda Despenser, is my age, and so I'm looking at this woman walking gracefully through the hall with a knight's belt on, going, "You guys said women didn't fight. What's up with that?" Because I'm looking right there. It's right there. She's right there. What is that? And they're like, "Oh, well, so I started fighting heavy when I was 19, and did that as well. But it was, I remember Leah just completely bowling me over, because she was elegant, she was graceful, she was feminine, and she brought her kids, and her kids were playing, and they were playing as a family, and I was so jealous because my parents were like, "What? No." you know, yeah, my parents thought it was a cult until I brought them to a couple events, and then they said, "This is really cool. Do we have to dress up?"
Yeah, our mom just didn't understand why we spent so much time doing this thing. So that's fine. She didn't need to understand.
Yeah. I was like, okay. No, I threw my mom in pretty clothes, and she went, "Ooh, okay." Yeah, my father still can't quite wrap his head around it. He just looks at me and goes, "No, no more tights. I'm not doing this again."
So did you eventually apprentice or protege to anybody?
Yeah, I did. I was Kymber's man-at-arms for a while, and then she stopped playing. But I did apprentice to Mistress Mariana Wren of Ravenswood, and I was her apprentice for 4 years. And I'm trying to think, when did I apprentice to her? I was 22, 23. Yeah, I was 23. And Mistress Mariana is a brilliant needle worker, brilliant costumer, does absolutely gorgeous illumination and calligraphy. Man, her hand's good. She does Italian white vine like nobody's business. Oh, I was very, very jealous because I could never get down to that level of detail. I'd just sit there and go, okay. Um, so, but yeah, she taught me how to sew rocks on clothes. She showed me so much stuff.
How did
Um,
how did your relationship come about with her?
um, wow, that was we had worked together on a couple of projects, and then I had said, "Hey, can I student to you?" And she said, "Huh, okay." And so I did. Um, and the way that we work it on that lineage is that I was a student for a year and a day, and that was for 2 years. And then at the end of that 2 years, I could choose to swear fealty and become an apprentice, or not, or remain a student and just keep re-upping every year. And after 2 years, I swore fealty um, in a complete 90-degree day, full Elizabethan with a ruff in the dust. Yeah, it was outlandish, this deep in dust, and I'm wearing a black skirt, which basically means I'm covered in crap. It's awesome. Um, so
That's what hem guards are for, right?
yeah, that is definitely what hem guards were for, and my tourney skirts are all washable, so it was
Smart, very smart. So you stayed with her for 4 years, and was that because you got elevated, or did you decide to? Okay.
yeah, yeah. I was elevated. Just I was just after my 27th birthday, before my 28th birthday, so I was really, really young. Um, I think there were 4 or 5 of us in the kingdom in the history of the Outlands um, who have been done that early. I think the youngest one is Yamanya Murray. I think she was 24. Um, but there was, Craigon and Sarah and me, and we were all under the age of 30. And it was, wow. I had no clue what was coming. I had no clue what was coming. My mistress just merely said, "Pack a nice dress for every event you go to," and I'm like, "So what does that mean?" And she's like, "I'm not telling you." Okay. I'm just kind of wandering around going, "Okay, I can do that."
It's like
Yeah.
always wear clean underwear unless you're, in case there's an accident. Always bring a fancy dress.
Always bring fancy dress. Um, or at least something you can stand up in court in and beat the photo op without being embarrassed. And so what had happened was that I had been busting myself for about 7.5, 8 months, putting together the burial gown for Dorothea Sabina von Neuburg. And it's a 1598 German gown. I was supposed to do it from the skin out, which I did. The only thing I didn't get was the stockings and the shoes, but I also ran out of time. But yeah, 7 months of work, was going to go in Queen's Prize, but they said, "You should wear this. You should be your own dress dummy." And I didn't know what was going on. I'm just like, okay, I can do this. And so here I am, 1996. I've gotten a bunch of the kids in our shire, um, you know, with clothes so that they can show up. I have been basted into this gown because we didn't have any documentation on how the gown closed.
So just sew it on. It'll be fine.
I was basted in both layers. I had redone the gown as an Italian double, as a doppio. So that because I couldn't figure out how one would actually hang two sets of sleeves on that overgown without actually taking everything out of balance. And so I said, two gowns. Okay. It's September. It's 90 degrees.
Ugh.
I'm my own dress dummy. Morning court. I look over and there are my parents in the audience. And I'm like, what is going on? And about that point in time, Crown calls me up and I'm like, okay, something is really amiss because I had made the deal with this particular crown. This was Irel and Ileana. Oh, Kitty.
Sorry.
There. Hi, Vivi. No, Fuzzy Baby. Fuzzy Baby takes precedence. So
you made a deal with this crown. Sorry.
I made a deal with this crown that they weren't going to thank me in public. I was just going to do the work because I was working on a lot of clothing for them because they had asked for some late period stuff. And I said, okay, great, no problem. Ira wanted some things that he could fence in and he could wear after he'd stopped fencing. Ileana just put up with me making her into a Barbie doll. She was so kind. She was so kind. I put her in so much fabric. It was crazy. And so I'm sitting there going, you guys aren't thanking me, right? And they're going, oh yeah, we'd like to thank you for all the work you did. And oh, by the way, would you like to consider joining the Order of the Laurel? And I went, what? And they started into the ceremony right then and there.
Oh.
I was a drive-by peerage.
That's awesome.
It was crazy. And I was shocked, pleased. I cried. I laughed. It was definitely better than Cats. It was insane. I walked in being prepared to compete and walked out of court a peer and went, okay, now what do I do? Oh God. So, here I am trying to figure out, I'd evaluated people before, so I'm wandering around and I'm evaluating people and I'm highlighting a couple of folks who had helped me with my project, including the guy who had made my pinking chisels, who later became a Laurel. He's a really nice guy. Master Kieran, I believe he's up in Cody. Yeah, he's up in Cody, Wyoming now. Doesn't really play much, but blacksmith made me pinking chisels. I was like, my
Really
God,
cool.
things ever. So I'm wandering around, just not really having a good handle on what just happened. I'm still, kind of shaking my head, going, okay. And everybody seems to be having a really good time laughing at me because I'm, for once, nonplussed. So they did give me a vigil a month later, down in Alberon, which is modernly Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh, cool.
It was, they were having ANS on the Saturday and Crown Tournament on the Sunday, and I had my my vigil on the day of ANS, so I wasn't actually getting to go like evaluate people. I was just kind of, sitting in the tent, and the Alberon Boys Club rolls in, all of them, every single bad boy in the barony, walks into my tent and lights up a cigarette.
No.
I had just quit.
Mm.
They thought this was funny because they're like, vigil, test of self-control. And I'm like, Thanks. You guys are really
I
helpful.
have special finger gestures for you all.
Yes, yeah, there were several not safe for work words that showed up. However, I did get some marvelous, marvelous advice. And one of my favorite pieces of advice came from Sir Zachariah Decane, who was 13 at the time. And I've known him my entire time in the SCA. He's just the greatest guy, and I've loved watching him grow up. He's one of my favorite people. And he said, "Don't stop learning, because if you stop learning, you don't deserve to be a peer." And I went, "Whoa, okay." And then His Grace, Duke Johann, Johnny, the Black Duke, walked in, and he was actually with the Albaranian Boys Club, and took a long pull off his cigarette at the time and said, "Don't rest on your laurels for fear your ass will grow too wide." And I went, "Oh, I hate it when you're right." I really hate it when you're right. So, there's the story of my laureling. And I just, the vigil was really amazing. It was really amazing. I got to talk to so many people, and I got the tour of several people's brains, that was very, very helpful before my first circle. So I at least knew what to expect there.
Right. And you had already been playing so long, so I'm sure that you had sort of a preconceived idea of what you thought a laurel was. How did that jive with your first year of experiences?
There were a couple of things that happened early on that really shaped my the way I wanted to have things happen. And one of them was that occasionally and you see this everywhere in every kingdom, but you always seem to have those one or two laurels that are a little less than careful about how they argue with each other in public, or how they, if they have a bad day, everybody's going to know your baby is playing with the.
Yeah, he's fine.
Okay, just checking.
He's testing to see if he can go on the ironing board or not. And
okay, yeah, I just saw him go after the tassel, and I went, "Oh no, that's mommy's." Okay, so, but a couple of things that had happened was that we had a couple of my fellow laurels that were a little less than subtle about arguing with each other in public. And I had some people, non-peers, come to me and say, "Are all laurels like that?" And I went, no. And so I went into circle and said, "Okay, this can't happen."
yeah.
And I was not entirely popular with that, but I had also said, I'm not carrying the sins of this order. I want you all to remember that we are being watched, and that people are looking to us as an example of behavior. And hey, don't yell in public, please. And a couple of the folks that I talked to were really great about it, because they said, "I was yelling." Yeah, you were yelling. Okay. And so getting that reminder was, I was scared to death. Honestly, I was scared to death to say it.
That's a really brave thing to do in council as a laurel of decades, but as a new laurel, that's super scary.
Yeah. The other thing that me and some of the folks that came after me within like a year or two, because we were starting to have the advent of the internet widespread, and email, electronic communication, things like this, there were a lot of non-peers in our kingdom who really didn't know who did what.
Right.
And I didn't know who did what in some cases. I mean, I knew what I thought they did, but it's like, okay, so how is the ANS minister supposed to know what you're doing or what your specialty is? Because in the Outlands, they don't really list specialties when they make you a laurel. It's for excellence in the arts and sciences.
Same with on tier.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I could be a metalworking laurel. I could be. Um,
Yeah, I was doing a whole bunch of stuff when I got laureled, and I don't know what I got laureled for. So whatever.
I knew basically what it was for, and it was for women's clothing, 1560 to 1600, mostly continental, and also Middle Eastern dance education. A majority of my teaching portfolio was actually for Middle Eastern dance education. Um, yeah, yeah, it's a weird combination of stuff. People are like, really? Yeah, really.
And one of the things I've noticed doing these interviews is that Middle Eastern dance is really big in the Outlands. Like everybody does it.
I would say a majority of people do it. We do have a running joke in the Outlands that all our men walk like they wear six guns and all our women walk like we have a soundtrack.
I love that.
Because we do. And yeah, you look at night at Estrella or Penzic or Gulf Wars, anywhere, Great Western, you can spot somebody who's been trained in the Outlands. And I'll give you a prime example of somebody who lives, two people who live in your kingdom. And one of them is Justin De Leon, Sir Justin, who still, after all this time, walks like an Outlander, and Duchess Eleanor de Bolton, who is one of the most graceful dancers on this planet. Just saying.
I didn't even know that she danced. That's good to know.
She's brilliant. She is brilliant.
I know she's a wicked gardener, and she's growing all kinds of cool medieval plants, and she's our current. She is our current arts and science champion.
Yeah, I read her latest paper, and it was spectacular. She's her research, and I know just enough about her field that to get, I can follow pretty much what she's talking about, and her documentation is spot on. And her science, I mean, she is really taking it into the realm of science, and I'm so proud of her.
Aw, that's awesome. That's awesome. Both of them are. Justin is. He lives near me, and he and my husband go to the same fight practice. He has been an incredible asset to our kingdom.
He's fantastic.
Really,
I've known him since I started playing, and he is one of the lights in my life.
Aw,
Fantastic.
very sweet. What was I gonna say? It's gone. Oh well. So your art geek is costuming and Middle Eastern dance, and you kind of came into the SCA with a little bit of both of those under your belt already. What's your big service geek?
Oh, big service geek. There's several. My big service geek would be, let's see. I started out holding the hand of a lot of very nervous queens. I sewed for a lot of my friends who then became queen, and then I sewed some more because you can't beat the photo op if you're wearing the same thing for 6 months. You just can't do it. And so I did a lot of that. I got a lot of crews together to do that. I did the Royal Encampment for Penzic for several years in a row. Did that. Did the I was the media liaison for Penzic. I've also been the media liaison for Estrella, working with Sir Merrick, who was very kind to very kind to let me play with him. It was very cool. Penzic, I fell into that media position almost by accident. My predecessor had been fired at the end of Peace Week for lack of performance. And the mayor, who was a friend of mine, Master Morgan, dragged me into his office, which you don't ever want to be dragged into the mayor's office. And really. And he dragged me into his office and he says, I need your help. Can you do this? And I went, I've never done it before, but I can do it. So I did it. And so, we figured out how to make it work. And so, yeah, my service geek seems to be, with event management. I used to do that professionally for when I worked for the University of Colorado at Boulder. I'm still working for the university, but not at Boulder. And I used to run conferences, scientific conferences. And so running events was easier because we actually had a schedule and people would look at it and pay attention to it, and the crown would actually communicate with you. Scientists don't do that. Believe me, things get weird. So that's kind of where my service geek kind of showed up. I do it because I love doing it. I love making things work. I love making things run smoothly. And I like I like taking the heat off of people if I can. It's one of the things that I look for in potential candidates for the Order of the Pelican is, hey, are you taking the heat off of other people or are you committing service? What's your chaos quotient, honestly?
We call that the splash zone.
The splash zone, yeah. It's chaos engendered versus benefit derived. Yeah, and so you kind of go, okay, are we having to clean up after this person? Yeah, okay, not yet.
Have they cleaned up after us?
And that has happened. That oh boy. We're all human, and sometimes, we have those, oh God, those oh God moments where you just go, oh, I'm sorry. And I will say that, early on, I didn't learn that I didn't learn that until I hit my late 20s.
I will tell you, I didn't start really in the SCA until I was almost 30, and I had a few bumps in the road early on as well. But if I had started at 15, yeah.
No lie, there were bumps. No lie. I'm just going to give a shout out to Master Odan, to the entire Abbey ladies, to to everybody who did not drown me before I had finished puberty. Thank you. Thank you.
Because you kind of essentially grew up in the SCA.
I've grown up in the SCA. Yeah.
Have you found that you have, I've talked to several people that have grown up in the SCA, and some of them have really felt like their younger past has kind of haunted them throughout their career, and that people don't look at them as a grown-up adult because they knew them as a child. Do you experience that at all?
It's not so much a child, it's more that there are folks that still think that I'm incredibly irresponsible, and they've kind of forgotten that I'm not 18. And that I run into that every once in a while, but it's becoming rarer over time.
Yeah.
I'm 52 years old. A few things have passed. I'm married now. got a career, got a household of my own, got students that I actually have to like manage, and be a good example, and stuff like that.
How long after you were Laurel did you take your first student?
7 months. 7 months. And I had always promised myself that I was not going to take a student right away. Not going to take a student right away. And then she fell out of the sky and hit me on the head. And I said, if she is strong enough to come out publicly and tell people who are much senior to, great of a senior rank to her, that they should be polite because they are of greater rank, that is my student right there.
Very cool.
That is somebody that I know has the fortitude to be able to make it in this game. That being said, she has quit playing. She has 2 lovely children who are special needs, and she is concentrating on them. And yeah, that is more important. Real life comes first. Always, 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 always.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Wow, I'm just super not brain functioning today. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay.
There was a follow-up. Oh, were you working with her before you got Laureled, or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys already knew each other.
Yeah, we knew each other already. We were friends. I had a period in the early 90s where I was also doing LARP in another in another hobby, and I met her there, and she came over. In fact, my first 2 students came over, and were doing SCA with me for quite a while. My first student no longer plays. My second student comes out for equestrian events like once every 5 years. But she also, when when you are an equestrian, what is your hobby? Horse.
Yeah.
That is what you do because, that is a beautiful animal and a beautiful, wonderful companion. And that is your first priority.
And that's a full-time responsibility.
It is a full-time responsibility. And she just didn't really have the time for SCA. So it was like, come when you can. She's like, do you want your belt back? And I said, no. No. I'm not going to pull a belt for having a life. Really?
Right.
No, it's not. That's not going to work. I'd rather have students who have real lives than students who have nothing but SCA.
Right.
This is my goal was to train people who become well-rounded members of society, not people who are just don't have anything else, because it doesn't work. It doesn't make you happy.
Somebody wants to know how many students of yours have become Laurels and Pelicans, and how many have become Royal Peers. And someone else is calling you Mother of Duchesses, so maybe we should talk about that.
I am a mother of duchesses. I am a mother of 1 duchess so far. Yes, my first peer to graduate was Duchess Chiara della Luna. She reigned in 2002 and 2004, if I remember correctly. And yes, she calls me mama. I call her baby girl. Man, when she came on the scene, I just sat there and thought to myself, my God, she is insanely talented. She is beautiful. She is smart. She's got a master's degree in museum conservation, which just totally blows me away. I was just like, wow, okay. And I took her right when I was still trying to finish my undergraduate degree, and she was a huge, huge proponent of me getting my homework done. Is your homework done? Yeah, all my homework's done. Because I was a non-traditional student, so I fought all the way through this. Chiara, when Hogarten first started dating her, he asked me if he could take her out. I mean, honest to God,
Aw.
to Garden just, can I take her out? Yes, be nice. And he's like, okay. And they're married. They have 4 gorgeous children. I, she's she's amazing. They're in Onsteora. I wish I could see her. I don't see her often enough. So yes, mother of duchesses.
Okay.
She let's see. I have 1, 2, 3 Laurels that I've graduated. 2 Pelicans, 1 Royal Peer, and then 1 Master of Defense.
Nice.
And I am insanely lucky with all of my students. I'm, they are highly motivated, talented people. I've got quite a few that are inactive, but we go back to that. This is about having a real life. This is, I've got one that's doing a master's degree. I've got one that works for Customs and Border Protection. I've got a couple that are working through real life issues. So that's more important always.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Should we look at some pictures?
Sure, let's look at some pictures.
Okay. If I can get it to work.
Yeah. God. So I didn't always play in Atenvelt or the Outlands. This is from 1986, either late 86 or very, very early 1987. I was 19 at this point in time. I'd been playing for about 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. And I went to college my first year in Texas, in San Antonio, which is the barony of Bjornsborg in Onsteora. And I met some of the most amazing people while I was down there. I met Baroness Mari. I met Master Ivar. And I met a gentleman who shaped my play in the SCA with one conversation, and that was Count Jan Orzeltum. Jan is a triple peer, and he is he's a count as well. He is responsible for the Tournament of the Lions in Onsteora. If you can ever get a chance to interview this man, please do, because he is one of the most amazing people on this planet. I was one of the very, very few people in a 2 barony radius who had a persona that was after the year 1000. And I caught a lot of crap for it. And they used to call me Space Woman, and they wondered why I wasn't wearing Viking, and they wondered why I wasn't wearing Celtic tunics, and they were wondering, and why do you have to wear all this lace, and why are you trussing yourself up like a chicken, and I was getting a little bit frustrated and not feeling very welcome, and I was considering, well, why should I keep playing? Why should I keep playing? And His Excellency took me aside and at an event and said, your work is beautiful. Keep going. Don't worry about what they're talking about. They have no idea what you're doing anyway. And your job from this point on is to make the magic for everybody else. And I went, Spock, and literally it was like a stick between the eyes. I couldn't believe it. And with that, I went back and kept playing, and I didn't leave. So, Jan is the reason why I still play, why I didn't quit when I was a kid.
Aw.
And I finally got to send him a letter about 5 years ago or so, telling him that, which was amazing. So, yeah, yeah, I was dressed in Cavalier, and you can see it. And this was one of the first bodices that I ever made that was actually lined. I am really, basically, I'm self-taught on sewing. I took a home ec class. That was it. I had to learn everything else. I think the skirt that I am wearing in this particular picture, which you can't really see, but I put it together with staples. I put the pleats in with staples. Okay. So that's my story there.
Okay, next picture.
Okay. Oh, this is the redo of my Laureling gown. Because I had screwed up the sleeve hang on the Pfalzgrafen burial gown so badly, I remade it. I also changed size. So this is actually the 4th remake of this gown. And the reason that this is really important is because it doesn't matter how many times you make it. You just keep making it until it's right. So yeah, this was at my, oh, yes.
Sorry, go back.
This is the heinous gown. This is the heinous dress. I lost a bet. No, I didn't actually lose a bet, but I may have won this bet. I'm not really sure. Every once in a while, I get into these bets with other artisans where they say, I'll bet you can't do something with this. And my answer was, watch me. And this is Master Tariq from down in the Citadel of the Southern Pass, which is modernly El Paso, Texas. He went to the best fabric store on the planet for wools. And you'd think, my God, this is like a bunker in the middle of downtown El Paso. And you go downstairs and you look at all the stuff in the basement, and it's just stacked floor to ceiling with everything. Yeah, but it's all wool. And Tariq found this wool and said, I bet you can't do something with it. And I said, I bet I can. And I sat on it for a couple years. And then Duke James the Holy, bless his heart, said, hey, do you know anything about Lansknecht? And I said, maybe. He says, well, we should do Lansknecht at Gulf Wars. So I finished this just in late February, getting ready for this year's Gulf Wars. And then we didn't go.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, the heinous dress is pink. It is so pink.
That is actually one of my favorite colors.
Okay.
I love it.
It is so pink. It is so pink.
Yeah, there we go.
This is 1995, and the lesson that I learned here is don't wear a closed ruff when you have a sunburn.
Ow.
I looked like a tomato on a plate. However, one of the things you can't really see about this this particular photo is that the underskirt on this, the forepart, is beaded. The doublet and sleeves are beaded. Everything had rocks all over it. And I'm wearing my mistress's favor because she gave me a belt, but she said the belt doesn't go with everything. So she gave me this favor in her colors. And so when I give my students favors, it always has the red ribbon that is part of her colors that was never part of mine. So it kind of hands it down.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. This is another bet. I found that I had this fabric, which is, it doesn't look very purple, but it is really, really, really purple. Really purple in real life. And I had found that I had this fabric, and Master Louis Philippe Mitoard also has it. And he said, well, we should make matching outfits. And I said, I'll bet I can throw more rocks on my garb than you can on yours. I won.
So was it a brocade that has laurel wreaths on it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We were both Laurels. He did a doublet and Venetians. I did a Valois style gown from about 1550 or so. And it was decidedly marvelous. I had such a good time sewing rocks on clothes. I loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my I'm a Laurel dress. Ah. Now, this is not something I'm known for. And this was a dual project. It was a partnership project between myself and my student, my apprentice, Graylin O'Connor, who has since graduated and is now a Laurel himself. Graylin did all of the calligraphy. I did the illumination. This was for Mistress Kaylin Murray, who is Graylin's wife, when she was made a Laurel in the year 2000 for music. And so I went and did the research and looked up the type of illumination that would have been done on an antiphonal, looked at the type of notation, music notation that would have been appropriate for the same period, and then tried really, really hard to get the lines straight. However, I was working on my coffee table, and as you can see, there are some bumps in the lines. That's from my cat. And what you can't really see from this photo is that down in the achievement, around the bottom of the achievement with the supporters, is a bunch of cat prints.
Aww.
So.
Oh, were we ready to go on?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't intend to do that, but here we are.
I made this in 1995. It was my Kingdom Arts and Sciences. It was my Kingdom Arts and Sciences entry, and it was originally made for me. It is the 1574 Walter Fish French unibody bodice, which is something that up to that point I hadn't seen anyone else do. And so trying to get that to work, where it didn't buckle and it didn't do anything, and I could get it to where it could be worn without having, I could just do internal front boning over a light set of stays, worked.
Sorry.
And I really, really loved that gown. And when Duchess Michelina was going to Penzic and she was reigning as queen, she said, I need something late period and really smashing to wear, and it turned out she was the same size I was, and I said, "Here, put this on," and she said, "Ooh," and she wore it and didn't die. I didn't put the sleeves on her because, well, it was 90 degrees and 90% humidity, and you just don't want to wear sleeves at that point. Um, so we put her in that and sent her to the Queen's Tea, and she was absolutely gorgeous, and people thought she looked amazing. And I was so happy that she liked it.
Awesome. Did she give it back to you, or
Yes.
did she keep it?
Yeah, no, she gave it back to me. So here's a better view of the redo of my Laurel gown. And I'm not really the important person in this picture. The important person in this picture is the guy that's escorting me, and that is Master Wolfgang, who was my apprentice. And he's a white scarf. He is master of defense. He is a flower of the Outlands. He makes all his own clothes. He makes his ladies' clothes. He makes a whole bunch of other people's clothes. He makes tents. He cooks. He does all the stuff.
Wow.
Insane. He is insanely talented. And I'm just exceedingly proud of him. We were lining up because we share a student, and that student was stepping up to be Baron of Kerta, and we were going to release him.
Awesome.
So yeah. Okay, this was another really cool joint project. One of the things that I really love to do is work with up and coming artists. And the lady in question was an insanely good weaver. And she, we were looking at her to see whether she was gonna go into Laurel areas, and I said, okay, well, I'd really like to work with her, see how she is to work with. And so the Crown, William Flanagan and Drahomira von Augsburg, decided that they wanted hand woven tunics, early period hand woven tunics. And so I said, well, I'll make them. Let's see if we can't get Mistress Diana, now Mistress Diana. But let's see if we can't get Diana to do the weaving. And so she did. She got enough fabric done in record time. And as I'm cutting this apart and freaking out, by the way, very little intimidates me about cutting fabric except hand woven stuff, which, I'm just terrified of. But I'm cutting it apart and it's not unraveling. It's not going anywhere. It's not spreading, nothing. It's just staying put. And I'm like, okay. And the Crown said, hey, what did you think? And I said, oh, yeah, she's good. And so this was at Battlemore. They wore them, they loved them, and then they offered her for Laurel, and she did say, you kind of set me up for this, didn't you? And I said, no, I have no recollection of that. I just wanted to work with you. And I did. And she's awesome.
That's a good sneaky Laurel tricks. I think that costuming for royals is a really good way to help people get seen. Especially people who don't like to do competitions.
Yeah.
Who don't thrive in that kind of environment. Sewing for visible people really can be a good way to showcase artists. So it's one of my favorite tricky Laurel things to do.
I love doing it. I love working on partnership projects. I do it a lot with my best friend. And it's so much fun.
Yeah, there's no better feeling than costuming for a woman that you can dress up and make her feel pretty. And you can see the expression on her face change when she puts the clothes on that you've made her. And you can tell that it has transformed how she feels about herself for that moment.
Yes,
And
it's perfect. And there's nothing better in the world to see somebody say, "Oh gosh, I love this. It's so cool and I feel awesome." I feel awesome. That's yeah, that's it.
those are the words.
So nothing better.
For sure.
Yeah. That's a close up of the heinous. Um before I lined it. But yeah, this is it was winter. I was bored. I did stuff. There's a lot of needlework in this.
It's gorgeous. I think that that maybe heinous needs to stop being its nickname, because it's really beautiful. It's beautifully made. I love the colors.
I had thought about naming it the Hello Kitty dress, but I don't think that would work either. Because I don't have any kitty faces on it.
Mm, well, you could put one on there.
I could. I could. Somewhere on the skirt I'll have to put a kitty face. Oh, let's see. This there are two very important things about this photo. One of them is that, and the primary one is that I'm taking a student right here. This is the Honorable Lady Elizabeth Ann Morley, um, and she is a scribe and a needleworker. She also has a PhD in musical, I think it's choral pedagogy, actually. Um, and she is brilliant and does tons of research and has one of the clearest hands, calligraphic hands that I've ever seen. You know, and she wanted to be my student, and I went, really? Okay. Um, let's talk about this because it's a long-term thing, and you need to be aware of what's involved here. So that was really, that's the important thing about this photo. The other one is the dress I'm wearing. That's the geek dress. Um, and the reason I call it the geek dress is because I managed to document it within 5 years.
Wow.
And it's completely hand done. The only machine that touched it was the iron. And I had major surgery, and so I had to put my feet up for 6 weeks. And that's what I did to keep myself from going crazy. But it is also the only thing that I really couldn't get researched on this particular gown was the fact that it is linen. Um, and so, normally in Northern Europe, you would see wool. Um, I'm fudging it a little bit with a drapey linen because the original is from the Tacunium sonatatis, and and that actually is Italian, and so I'm kind of going, well, they might have had Italian gowns out of, Boccaccio talks about a woman in white linen, and so I'm kind of like, okay, I can fudge that. But that's the only thing I couldn't really get together. Um, I've never competed it. I'm terrified to. But it is one of the most fun projects I've ever done.
Are you a competition person?
I can be. I can be if necessary. I have not actually entered a competition since I was made a Laurel. And I've been thinking about doing it. I'm just not sure what kind of project would be good enough.
Yeah.
I really want to have something that's really good, and I want to take my time, and I want to, and document first, then do, because, honestly, if you don't document first, then you don't know how it was done,
Right.
you know.
Right. That's a beginner thing to do first and then back document.
Yeah, no, I hate retroactive documentation. Ah, yucky. And you can tell. There's the heinous. Okay, no more heinous. Hello Kitty, whatever we're gonna call it. The pink dress.
It's like the Good and Plenty dress.
It is the Good and Plenty dress. Okay. So there are several of my favorite people in this picture, but the important one is the guy in the yellow, otherwise known as His Majesty. Um, that's His Grace Hrothgar, and Her Excellency Ingrid, who you probably know from when she lived in Ontario.
She's ours. I claim her.
I the first time I saw her, I said, God, can I grow up and look like that woman?
Right. She's phenomenal.
Oh, she's phenomenal. And she's cool. And her research. There's another one. Her research is amazing. I just kind of wow. But she had buzzed me and said, "Hey, I realized that we needed to get a gold coat together for Hrothgar for for Estrella Grand Court, and I'm running out of time, and it's 2 weeks from now, and can you do it?"
Whoops.
And I said, yeah. I got it done in 10 days.
Aw, it looks gorgeous on him.
I was really proud of myself. He still wears that.
Of course he does. It's epic.
I'm really grateful that he does. But yeah, that was put together. It was put together really, really fast, and he liked it. And that was all I cared about was he likes it. He likes it. Felt kind of like Sally Field there for a minute. You really, really like it. Oh, but yeah, I got to do that. That was awesome.
It's awesome. I watch Phoebe because I don't think I can even say her SCA name. I watch her head wrap tutorials with my daughter all the time. We're trying to nail that down. We still don't do it very well though.
Well, I can't either. It always slips off my head. I don't know how she does it. I think it's staple.
Pins. She uses pins.
Pins. Yeah, no, she's amazing. Okay, this is my best friend, Master Graylin, who was also my apprentice, and his daughter, Kathleen. And gosh, Graylin is he is a Laurel for Templar history and also for needlework. So he is Templar boy. And Katie was, I'm trying to think, she was probably about 5, 6 in this picture, something like that. And she said, Bree, can I have a pink dress for Christmas? And I said, yes, Katie, you can definitely have a pink dress for Christmas.
Aww.
And so the challenge here was not only making Graylin's cloak that he's wearing right there at the same time, because that was his Christmas gift that year, but also getting it so that Katie could wear that for several years. That's kind of a challenge, as you're well aware. Making clothes for kids, you want to be able to have them wear things for more than 10 minutes at a time. You want to make sure that they're washable. You want to make sure that you can let the seams out, that you can let the sleeves down, the hems down. So that thing had like 2-inch seams and 3-inch hems all over the place. And she wore that up until it was a super tunica that was length, I think.
That's really smart to do with kids. I made my daughter an apron dress last year that was supposed to be for this tourney season. And she complained that it was too big, and it's just starting to fit her now, and I'm pretty sure she's going to have grown out of it by the time we're back in playing again. So
yeah, you may have to put more rectangular. You could put another rectangular panel.
uh,
Hook
we'll
back.
hand it down.
Yeah.
I think she's moving on from apron dresses. She's starting to actually get interested in stuff. So
I
anyway,
love it when that happens.
yeah.
Yeah, Katie is now a apprenticed to Asta, one of my graduated Laurel apprentices. So she is also not only my best friend's daughter, but she is also my grand apprentice, which is
Aw, that's so cool.
yeah, she's awesome. Okay.
Okay.
This is another one of those, hey, how am I going to pull a miracle out? I have no idea. This was, okay, the gentleman on the left is Baron Massimiliano Pontieri del Sasso. He is the founding baron of the barony of Kirgalen, and his lady Yazida bin Sarif. Both of them are pelicans. He is also a laurel, and he's also a white scarf, although you can't see it in this picture. So this one time in 1997,
At band camp.
at band camp, yeah, right after, let's see, it was about a year after I was made, so it was October, and we had Sordid Affair, which was the kingdom's premier rapier event at the time, was going to be held at University of New Mexico, on right next to their duck pond, and which is a gorgeous spot, and maybe the only place in New Mexico that has green grass. I'm not sure, but I still have to check. But we were going to go down, and Lycurgus and Michelina were crowned, and they had told me and a couple of other people to get things ready for Max, because they were going to offer Max a laurel, and they were going to do it right then and there with all of the white scarves and all of the rapier community in attendance. They were going to give him a laurel. Now, this was back before the days of the Master of Defense. And so he was doing research into period fencing forms. He was also a master illuminator and calligrapher. I mean, God, he taught me how to do it. And his quote was, "If you can paint your nails, you can illuminate."
Oh, well, that's much more encouraging than my experience with illumination. That's awesome.
You can do it. You can totally do it. You just have to use smaller and smaller brushes. So Max is amazing, just on general premise. And I grew up with Max. He was one of the kids that we all started together in Fort Collins.
Oh, wow.
And so we were all getting stuff together. You know, somebody had gotten the scroll, and somebody had gotten a medallion, and various things together. And we were going to surprise him down there. Unfortunately, what happened was we had a massive snowstorm hit just south of Denver and dumped 4 feet of snow.
Wow.
So my husband and I, my then fiance, my husband now, we got stuck in 4.5 feet of snow on the side of the road just north of Colorado Springs. Max was smart and turned around and went home before he got stuck. So the following morning, which is the morning of Sordid Affair, he gets a phone call from the Queen, Michelina. Now he is naked ironing t-shirts in his house. This is fabulous because there's no video calls. Um, and so she offers him admittance into the Order of the Laurel, and he's naked ironing t-shirts. So they're gonna, yeah. So they're gonna do this ceremony the following weekend. And Max calls me and he says, I was naked ironing t-shirts and Michelina wants me to be a Laurel. And I said, okay, cool. And he says, I don't have anything to wear. And I said, really? And he says, can you make me something? And I said, sure. There's only one problem. I was leaving that Friday to go to California to spend a weekend with my mom. So I said, you got fabric? And I put that together in 2 days.
Nice.
And they sewed the buttons on the way down to war practice. And Max received his laurel on the fighting field at war practice. And then, that's all she wrote. But yes, I managed to get that done in 2 days.
Do you, does the Outlands have more than one historical fighting laurel?
2, if I remember correctly.
I think we have 3. I'm going to be interviewing
one. And then Master Ian of Nightscape.
Awesome. I didn't know that was being done in other kingdoms as well.
It was being done at certain points. I believe that is now more being taken care of by the Masters of Defense.
Right.
And I love those guys. They're so awesome.
I think it's an interesting thing, though. I would like to, and I guess I'll have to interview somebody to find out, like, isn't Master of Defense more of a fighting thing, like a knighthood is? And couldn't we still be making laurels for studying period fighting styles? And
I honestly don't know what the best option is for that. I think it should be, in regards to the Masters of Defense, I think it should be a combination of, the excellence and the prowess of rapier combat with the historical research. I think it needs to be both. My brother and sister peers in that, in that order are talented researchers as well as being extremely, extremely competent fighters. As you may or may not know, our beloved queen right now is a Master of Defense.
Awesome.
Yes.
Super awesome. I didn't mean to take away anything from Masters of Defense. It's something that I'm curious about because I honestly don't know. I haven't been playing a lot in person since the order was created. And I look at when somebody is elevated to the Shiv, there are other qualities that have to come too, but it's not a historical fighting thing, it's a fighting thing. And so I just wonder where the balance is. And
I think it's going to depend on kingdom, and it's going to depend on the tenor of that particular order.
Yeah.
Inside that kingdom. The folks that I know that are Masters of Defense do take the historical research very seriously.
Yeah.
So, if I find one that is also a laurel, I will definitely send them your way, because I think that way you could have a really cool conversation.
Yeah. Well, I have been talking to one of our laurels for historical combat about doing an interview, and it's something I want to talk to him about because he's not a Master of Defense as well. Okay. So it's an interesting like how that whole trend. Anyway, sorry, we're getting totally sidetracked, and I'm going to shut that conversation down.
Okay.
Sorry.
We're good.
Let's girl.
Okay. So let's see. Um, there are two pieces in this photo that are my work. And one of them is in the lower right corner, and that's my favor that Master Graylin is wearing. Um, I am not the best person at embroidery, but I try. It's one of those things that you end up learning because the project you're working on really has to have it. And when I first started making clothing, I sucked at embroidery. I just sucked at it. And so, certain points where somebody said, "Hey, I need Norse," or "I need this," or "I need something else," and it requires embroidery. And I went, all right. So here I am doing embroidery. And so Master Graylin had asked to carry my favor, and I said sure, and then I made him that favor, which he wore it until it shredded off of his belt, which was lovely. The other really cool piece was the lady that is to my left, because I'm in the center. The lady that's to my left is my apprentice, Asta. Asta, right there, yeah, is I had released her, or actually she'd put her belt in abeyance because she was stepping up to the Baroness of Cairgalen. And in the Outlands are typically, not always, but typically, if our barons and baronesses are students to appear, they usually put their belt in abeyance because it, at least in my mind, it is the most appropriate that they serve the crown first and not me while they are doing this job, because their primary job is to be baron and baroness and to administer the crown's lands.
Right.
And I have had, let's see, Asta was, Kiara was landed, and Isabella is landed now. She was not landed when she was my student. And Nico, who is currently Baron of Kerta, is so I've had several that have stepped up into really noble positions, which is fun. It's fun to watch them grow. And so the point of that is that I made Asta's stepping up garb. And when I did that, we knew that she was going to be stepping up. We weren't really sure that things were going to be happening that was anything else. What this picture really is my pelican ceremony. 3 weeks before, I was asked at Glory by His Grace Boleslav, who was king at the time. He said, "Hey, Bree, can you make a statement? Can you make a statement or make an announcement about Penzic?" And I said, "I think everybody that's going is going already. What do you want me to do here?" And he said, "Oh, just be funny." I'm like, my sense of humor was surgically removed in 1996. Are you really sure you want me to be funny? And he said, "Yes, please." So he calls me up and he asks me to make this announcement about Penzic. And so I'm talking about, come join the Outlands at Penzic, fight all day, party all night, breathe once every 7 minutes. Because we're at high altitude. They're not. And I'm thinking, okay, great, I finished this. And he says, we're not done with you. And I said, what? And they get me down in front of, and the order comes up, and he says, we're asking you to consider being part of the Order of the Pelican. And I went, oh, I never thought that was going to happen. And he said, so what do you think? And I said, I can't give you that answer right now. And the whole audience is like, what? And they said, and he says, why not? And I said, well, my husband isn't here. Because I had gone to the event alone. My husband was 100 miles away. And he says, well, surely you can give us an answer. And I said, no, I am not giving you an answer without my husband being here. And about that time, Sir Assad drags my husband into court. They had dressed him up in Assad's clothes so I wouldn't find him, and then hid him in Assad's tent all day, and then dragged him into court so that he could see this. But they had driven him up 100 miles so that they could actually see the offering. And so 3 weeks later at Kirgalen investiture, which was an outside amphitheater at 9,000 feet in the woods, it was absolutely beautiful. And Graylin made that gown for me in under 3 weeks. So it was a beautiful thing. And I was so grateful that somebody else made me clothes. So that I could make somebody else clothes. Oh, there you go. Okay, so there aren't very many pictures of me dancing, which is probably a good thing and a bad thing. And most of that has to do with flash photography. Because as a dancer, I dislike flash photography a lot because it throws off my balance. But this is at, I'm trying to think, this was Artemisian 20th year. I have a lot of friends and family, chosen family in Artemisia. That goes back to when we were all part of Atenbelt. You know, I mean, I met Sean and Bill and Karin and Leah and Robert and everybody. I mean, there were so many people that I met when I was very young. And we've kept up over the years, and I'm so grateful. And I was able to come out for Artemisian 20th year, and this was during the Hafla that they had that night. And I was able to be dancing, and Lord Vincenzo was kind enough to take this picture and got it without flash. And I was like, oh my God.
It's really a beautiful shot.
Dancing brings me peace. It is one of those things, and this is a piece of advice that I give to every artist and everybody who wants to do arts in the SCA, and that is find an activity that makes your face do what mine is doing right in that picture. That makes you go into your Zen happy place, that makes you joyous, that gives you energy. Any of you who have actually seen me dance, I'll come off the dance floor bouncing like a 12-year-old on crack. Boing, 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 boing. And you know, because I have danced and I have felt that music, and I have regained some of the things that I have loved for my entire life just by being able to do that. And so that, you know, find that one thing that really sends you to your happy place, and then go chase it down. So yeah, that's one. Oh, let's see. this was an experiment that actually worked. I was trying really hard to figure out the boy clothes for early 16th century German. And I had done a couple of sets before, thanks to His Grace Hansa out of the West, who had showed me how to work this in leather. And so I made a set of leathers for my husband. And I had never made a set for myself. And I was thinking to myself, well, why the heck didn't I do that for me? Because, well, he's not playing right now. I can't wear his stuff because, well, he's a foot taller than I am. And, well, that would look ridiculous. And so I said, well, hey, I can make this stuff for myself. And so every bit of this is prototypes. It's all prototyping, and it's all done with remnants of fabric. Because I said, well, if I'm going to prototype this, I don't want to be spending huge amounts of money. And so it's like, well, I have this piece of wool from over here, and I have this piece of wool from over here, and I found that at the thrift store, and this was left over from two other projects I had. And so I put this together and managed to make it work. I thought for sure, honest to God, I thought for sure, thank you, Hansa, just giving you the shout out. I thought for sure that my pattern was not going to work on those pants. But it turned out that if you actually put the grain, the vertical line of the pants on exactly 45 bias, it works. Honest to God, it works. Who knew? Who knew that it actually worked? So now that I have the pattern working, I'm going to do this in leather.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's everything you make is a prototype for the next thing. You always learn something from everything. And I learned so much from this, trying to figure out the grain, trying to figure out the stretch. I thought for sure that those pants were not going to fit over my butt, and they did. And I was like, wow, okay. Because yeah, you look at them and you go, there is no way that this is actually going to fit. And then you put it on and it molds to your butt, and you're like, hey, that does work. I'm like, yay. So yeah, that, and giving a shout out to Sir Michelangelo. Yes, I'm wearing a dead chicken on my head in this picture. Deal. Let's see. Yes. This was taken in 1997. This was about six months before we got married, but this is my beloved husband, Richard. Lord Richard O'Connor does not play, at least not much anymore. But this is, if you see my posts, you'll see that I refer to the bear. This is the bear. He is not a figment of anybody's imagination. He is a real person. And he has been my support for the last 22 years. He is a great sounding board. He has a great instinct for people. He actually, I did teach him how to tailor stuff, so he can help me fit things. I also train most of my students to do the same thing, because they need to know, and that way we can all fit each other, because fitting yourself is not a good idea, not with late period garb.
It's hard.
Yeah. My husband always said that anything I made for him, he would wear once, at least. Now, he did wear a lot of the things that I made. I started making him late period stuff, and he loved it, and he wore it once or twice. And then he kept deciding that he wanted Roman tunics or Viking tunics. So I am making him Roman tunics that he can wear with shorts, or I am making Norse tunics that he can wear with big fluffy pants. And that makes him happy. The stuff I'm wearing, that is the Toledo, that's the Toledo burial gown. That was one of my early renditions of the Florentine Satana. And you can see the laurel medallion that I was made with in that picture. Uh, and that's probably the most important thing about this picture, besides Richard. And my mistress, Mariana, had it made for me by Master Reese or Sir Reese Athelwyn. And it was a surprise gift. And so actually all of the laurels in my students get made with it. The ones that have been made, they got made with it. Let's see, Master Reese and Mistress Aldith, mom and dad in the SCA, they were also made with it. Master Adam Steadfast was made with it. There's like 8 or 9 folks who have been made
Total
laurels.
legacy piece.
It is a total legacy piece. It always comes back to me. So I'm very grateful. And we kept thinking that a bell should be put in there because it is a double dome and it's hollow. And I'm not going to let Reese have it back because he might put a bell in it and then I'm in trouble.
You should make it into a reliquary and put like a piece of your hair in there or something.
I could do that. That would be fun. Okay. What else? This, let's see, I made this gown originally in about 1993 or so. And I made it when I was a lot bigger than I am now. And so I have a gentleman who studies with me on making clothing. His name is His Grace Sean Tarragon, and I'm exceedingly proud of him. And for one of his assignments, I said, you need to retrofit this. You need to know how to retrofit clothing to fit someone else. So he pulled that entire gown apart and remade it. The only thing I told him he couldn't change was the front placket because I don't want to redo all of those buttonholes. And he remade it, and that officially, at this point, is the slinkiest dress I own. And I'm exceedingly proud of him for doing that gown. This was taken at Estrella. I was watching the Outlands tournament. I think Graylin was fighting at that point in time. I was right next to the field and watching Graylin fight for me in that tournament. So it was neat. Yeah, I'm really grateful that Sean was kind enough to work on that for me. He did it in a weekend.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And he is the person that suggested that I interview you as well.
Oh, well, cool.
It was kind of funny because you contacted me, and at the same time you contacted me, he was also contacting me, telling me to interview you. And I didn't make the connection that we were talking about the same person for a little while. And then I was like, oh, this is the same person. Okay. That was good.
Yeah. Sean has made me, Sean and various other folks in my life have made me a better teacher. He and I have gone through and looked at the nitty gritty of training people to attain mastery and skill. And one of the things that's been really great about the last 5 years of working with him on and off has been being able to break it down into the psychology of what works and what doesn't, and how you need to be able to adjust for different types of students. And I had always had a pretty good instinct about that, but being able to put it in concrete terms has been a huge help. Huge help.
Yeah, if anybody who's watching this didn't catch the training for non-neurotypical learners that the Coaches Corner did the other night, it was fantastic, and I highly recommend that you check it out.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely do that, because it is applicable for more than just fighting.
Oh, absolutely.
This is about understanding whether your students are auditory learners or visual learners or kinetic learners or a combination. For instance, Graylin was both very visual and very auditory, because we had to discuss things and understand, go through the logic before he would really grasp what I was trying to show him. Asta, Sean, Bella, Una, all of them were much more on the kinetic and visual end of the spectrum. They, very much, you show them, they work through it, and all of a sudden they get it. And so it was very challenging at times, but it was very interesting to watch the development. And with every student I've had, I've been watching this, and it has made me a better teacher. And so, to all my students out there that are watching this or will watch this, thank you. An incredible gift.
And Bella is asking if I can post the link. I'm having a hard time juggling this and posting the link, but I will pull it and post it in the comments after we're done.
Cool.
So yes, that will happen.
Okay.
And we're at the end of our photos.
We're at the end of the photos.
I'm gonna stop sharing. We're back.
So yeah. Woohoo! Thanks.
We are almost at 2 hours.
Oh my God.
I know. It goes fast. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about tonight that you have not got a chance to cover?
Well, let's see. A couple things. First of all, one of the better sources for when you're starting out in clothing, and oh yeah, my laptop's laying on it right now. It's a book called 20,000 Years of Fashion, and it's by Francois Boucher. And it is one of the reasons why it's really, really good is because, yeah, most folks who are new are just going to look at the pictures. Okay, so you're going to look at the pictures. But the idea is that you start with this book, and this book has all the citations of what the year is, what the item number is, and which museum it comes from. It's brilliant, because this starts you into the idea of researching and chasing down the thing. Now, a lot of people in the Laurel will talk about, oh yes, work from primary sources, work from extant pieces. Okay, great. Not everybody who's new understands that concept.
Right.
The idea is that you go after the thing. Go after the thing. Don't take anybody else's assessment of the thing. Go look at the thing yourself, either online, in person, with a photograph, and do your own assessment. Do your own analysis. Then compare it to somebody else's and see what they think. Yeah. And compare the two. So that's an important thing to know. And it's a great way to get started in weird rabbit holes.
That's a really good book to show to people who are trying to figure out what they want to do. Like maybe they didn't come into the SCA with a fully formed time period or style of dress. You can look at all these different styles and you can pick what you think is going to look good on you and what you're attracted to. And
Oh, yeah.
that's hugely valuable, because I think that if you don't pick a style of dress that you feel beautiful in,
Yeah.
you're not going to stick around, because nobody wants to feel schlumpy.
Nobody wants to feel frumpy. Nobody wants to feel uncomfortable.
Right.
This is the other important part about clothing. And I'm not talking costuming, I'm talking clothing. You know, medieval people and Renaissance people did things in a certain way because they lived in this clothing. They lived in this clothing. They worked in this clothing. And it is important to note that you need to be able to move and do everything that you normally do in this clothing. So don't compromise on making things that you can't move in. Granted, I made that mistake once. I did. I made a 1590 Mary Howard gown with the full cartwheel pad and the very, very long corset and the whole 9 yards. And when did I wear it? When I was recovering from an appendectomy and I had to put my butt in a chair.
Doesn't work.
Well, actually, more to the point, it kept me in the chair. But you couldn't move in it. You couldn't do anything. And people said, God, why are you wearing something that's so uncomfortable? And I said, oh no, it's not uncomfortable. It's just immobilizing me so that I can't hurt myself.
I have a friend who made a doublet for her then husband for their wedding, and he couldn't lift his arms in it.
Yeah, and it, you know, and it's like no, and this is something that is important to note, is that the stuff you see in portraits, and you know the stuff that you see. Bless you. You okay? Okay. The stuff you see in portraits and the stuff you see in manuscripts, and this is again about critical thinking and making your own assessment. In portraits, people are wearing their best clothes, and especially the later in period you go, the more often those clothes are on mannequins, and then people sit for the rest of the portrait, which is an interesting note, because Lord knows, would you really want to be wearing all of those layers for hours and hours and hours? And so, you know, we have documentation that happened with Elizabeth Tudor and various other people within that time period. Once you get before about 1470 or so, you start going back earlier than that, and things become less realistic in body proportion and in representation. You really start seeing, and this is where this interesting rabbit hole kind of happens, of how illumination and portraiture end up crossing and how we use that to cross-reference for clothing. Think about that for a minute. The Arnolfini wedding, Van Eyck, 1430. It's one of the first seriously realistic and almost photographically realistic paintings that we see. How did that come out? Trompe l'oeil. From the you start seeing trompe l'oeil illuminations starting 1390 to 1410. You start seeing that come out. And so you start seeing a gradual point for realism. And so you have to be able to cross-reference everything. And this is why I keep saying, go back to the data. Data doesn't lie. Extant pieces don't lie. Physics doesn't lie. If you've got holes in your research, look at physics, chemistry, biology, economics. Because all of those give you the idea of how we made stuff. People did it for a reason. You know? Yep. We're not gonna find, you know, and the science doesn't lie. Science doesn't lie. You know, I teach a class, or at least I haven't taught it lately, but I taught a class about cold weather camping and how to deal with cold weather in the SCA. It's like, well, because it was cold in period, at least partially, in parts. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, okay. You know where Denver is at, basically between 38th and 40th, parallel? Where is that in Europe? Madrid. Everything else is really far north. It's cold. Who knew? Why are they wearing wool? Because it's cold. Why are they wearing wool? Because there's central heating. No, there's no central heating. Really? So, look at your science. Think about, don't take it for granted that whatever somebody may have just presented to you is actually real, because look at the science. Science doesn't lie.
And it's okay to come up with your own theories. You
Totally.
don't have to agree with whoever's gone before in your field.
True. And, this is one of the things that I end up arguing with various folks who are German clothing specialists, is that they look and they say, we really like the side seams on the bodices. I'm like, the physics doesn't lie about how that bodice is put together. If you want something tight against the waist, you have to have back diagonal seams, and those are commensurate with Italian bodices from the same time period. How could that get there? Well, gee whiz, we've got German mercenaries going down into Italy starting about 1450, 1460, and it's coming back. Gee whiz, who would have thunk?
There's lots of cross-pollination for sure.
Oh, lots of cross-pollination. And if you just look at it, it goes along with he who has the gold makes the rules. He who's in, wars create so many different fashion statements all through period. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Well, awesome.
Yes, awesome.
Good rabbit holes.
Yeah, total rabbit holes. Oh yeah, I can.
And the last thing that I wanted to talk about with you was that you are a walker of the way of Atenville. And
actually, no, Walker of the Way is Outlands.
Outlands, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
My brain is scrambled. Walker of the Way of the Outlands, which is kind of an equivalent award to Lion of Ontier or Lion of Atenville or Griffin of Artemisia.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, so tell me about that.
Well, the Walker of the Way has been around since the Outlands was a principality. And it's given once a reign, just like the Griffin of Artemisia, the Lion of Atenville, and the Lion of Ontier. It is for somebody who embodies the dream, somebody who embodies what we are striving to be. I never thought that was going to happen, ever. Because I'm a big dorkfish. I'm a big dorkfish. I never, ever thought that somebody would think that I was that cool. Ever. And I'm still boggled by it. I really am. And again, kind of seems to happen. The crowns who seem to catch me with some of these things are very sneaky. And so I'm at Estrella. This was 3 years ago, 2017, 2018.
The OP says 2018.
2018. Okay, so yeah, so it's Estrella, and we've been running at Mach 3 with our hair on fire for days at this point, and I'm pretty tired, and I've been cooking for the camp. That is one of my shortfalls, is that I am one of those people that can heat up food, but I'm not the best cook on the planet. So folks I'm getting dinner ready, and His Majesty Jax, His Grace Jax, comes by with the royal entourage and yells at me in my little cooking pop-up and says, "You're coming to court, right?" And I'm like, oh, it's Estrella Grand Court. Hey, I want to go. No, I don't. Because it's a really long court, and half the time I don't know who's there, and I don't know what's going on. And he's like, I need you to dance. Okay. Am I dancing the processional? Yes, you are. Yes, Your Majesty, get on board. I'm okay. So I get changed. I leave dinner on the stove. I go, I dance in the processional, and everything's cool. And I'm like, okay, so I'm dancing, yay. And then they say, oh, we need you to help serve bacon. Because what His Majesty had decided to do was he had gotten enough bacon to serve bacon to the entire crowded court. All of it. Everybody who's there. So here I am serving bacon, and I'm serving more bacon, and I'm serving bacon, and I'm, throwing bacon at people. And I'm standing in the back of court, and I'm like, okay, we're done. I can go home now. And Sir Michelangelo and Master Graylin are standing on either side of me, and they say, "No, you're not going. Hang on. We need to watch what's going on. Something's going on." And then they both drag me into court, and as I'm doing this, I'm mouthing the words, "Jax, what?" And Jax looks at me and goes, and I'm like, "You are an evil rat bastard." But okay. And I get my walker of the way. They make me walk all the way in the in Grand Court at Estrella.
Wow.
So that my kingdom and Artemisia, where I had, both places where I have all this family, can see, and I'm just like, oh, wow. And the other really cool part about that, and this, yes, I'm blown away. Raid made my the necklace that my medallion is on, and Master Reese made the medallion itself, which, it's like, okay, Pop makes my medallion. I love that. But the other really cool part about it was that I had not yet had a chance, because of the way my school schedule, I was in graduate school. My school schedule had gone. I had not been able to be at an event where I could swear fealty.
Aww.
And they let me do it in court right then. I did it from memory. It took 15 seconds. I was so grateful. And then they booted me out of court, and I'm all of a sudden a walker of the way, and I'm like blown away.
What does the medallion for the Walker of the Way look like?
It is a palmer on the path. It's a hermit in a hood carrying a lantern. And it's usually just an outline of that. Yeah, I'm almost in tears thinking about it again. Because really, me, and it's just, I'm wow. I never thought it would happen. I never thought that would happen. But the person who did make me a walker of the way, the two people, and that would be Jax and Anna McTaggart, they believed in me. And that's a huge gift.
Yeah.
To know that somebody believes in me like that. Wow. And yeah, wow.
Very cool.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for sharing your journey this evening.
Yeah, it's been a long, strange trip.
And then this year got even stranger.
Oh my God, no kidding. Yeah. I don't know. One of my foster students came by and said she said she was going to make me some COVID beads. She's a lamp worker. So I'm going to get little viruses
Awesome.
for my Norse treasure strand. I'm really excited.
Our baron of our local barony is giving out his baronial favors are plague coins with a plague doctor on one side and then a COVID virus on the other that Master Arian.
Oh my God, I would totally
Made
do
the
that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's super cool. Yeah. So I think people are doing some cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you for tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been amazing. And yeah.
It's great to get
Wow.
to talk to you. Tomorrow night, my
Yeah.
sister and I are interviewing Duke Dak from Ontier, who is a Lion of Ontier and a Duke, and kind of the cornerstone, foundation stone of a lot of what Ontier is. So we're really excited to do that tomorrow.
That'll be awesome.
Hopefully people tune in. Thanks everyone for watching tonight. And Bree, thank you again so much for
Thank you.
sharing yourself. Good night.
All right. Have a great evening.
You too. Night, night.